Welcome back to another episode of Sports Unlimited, where we dive deep into the accelerating world of sports. In today's episode, it's one of our short episodes because we are going to talk about the college spring top 25 teams. All right, plain and simple. I just put out my top 25. You can watch it and see it on all our social media, and let me know what you guys think about it. No, plain and simple. Spring's in the air. Let's look at it. But prepare for an episode packed with insight, speculation, and excitement. This is Sports Unlimited, and I am thrilled to have you on board. So let's jump right in. Thank you, Panda. So, you smell that? That spring is in the air. And yes, it's time for us to overreact and say what 25 college teams are going to be in the top 25 currently, and how many of them are actually going to disappoint us in the next fall. Yeah. But either ways, it's going to be fun. I think that my top 25 really represents the teams that are truly have done things to better themselves or have acquired enough essential weapons or protection for the team that they can do it. And I think it's pretty balanced between ones that are like, okay, I can see why you put them there, and others where you're like, you make a good point, but I'm not 100% sure kind of thing. All right? So let us go ahead and get started, and we're going to start with number 25. Of course, I got to put them at 25, my Aggies. Yes. So with the change of leadership, A&M does aim to regain its footing, after the Jimbo Fisher debacle. Mike Elko, the new head coach, brings a sense of discipline and familiarity to the program. He was their DC 2-3 years ago, something of the sort. So Elko inherits a very talented roster and has bolstered further with critical additions from the transfer portal. Plus, quarterback Connor Wickman, in particular, stands to benefit from the coaching transition, especially under the guidance of new OC Colin Klein. However, the team needs to help identifying who their wide receiver one is going to be, and this spring needs to tell us that. Notable additions though include Purdue transfer Nick Scarton, who led the Big Ten in sacks last season, and Alabama corner Des Reeks, amongst others. So that defensive backfield is pretty much set. Now, freshman Terry Busey adds versatility to the secondary, providing a lot of depth and potential impact in his season debut. At 24, I have the Miami Hurricanes. So, despite some concerns, I'll put them in the top 25 3 ways from Sunday. All right? They showed signs of improvement under coach Mario Cristobal in his second season. While the team still struggled with mistakes, there's undoubtedly talent accumulating within the program. All right? They hope, are pinned on former Washington State quarterback Cameron Ward, who brings not only stats, but experience. It's something that they were lacking. Defensive additions also safety Michelle Powell from Washington and defensive lineman Elijah Alston from Marshall. Also, Merrill Cook from Middle State bolster up that team's defensive depth, which is something they really lacked last season, in my opinion. Plus, Miami secured a highly ranked recruiting class with solid linebacker and defensive line positions, which allows them to have a promising future. And I think we're going to see that here. At 23, I have the Louisville Cardinals. So, Louisville has significantly added to their roster. All right? They're in both offense and defensive side of the ball. Former Texas Tech quarterback Tyler Shaw and former Alabama wide receiver Ja'Cory Brooks. Also, they've added the MAC Offensive Player of the Year in Toledo tailback Penn Boone. The offense gains, which helps them gain a lot of explosiveness, and versatility. On the defensive end of the ball, they've added Tennessee edge Tyler Barron, who recorded 6 sacks and 10.5 5 tackles for loss, and former Harvard defensive tackle Thor Griff, who really adds more strength to the team. So potentially, this could propel the Cardinals back into contention of the ACC. We'll see, though. At 22, I have the West Virginia Mountaineers. So in 2023, Neil Brown faced pressure to deliver results at West Virginia. Okay? And what did he do? He responded impressively. He guided the team to a 9-win season, which remarkably saved his job. The successful season also accumulated with a convincing 30-10 victory over North Carolina in the Duke Mayo's Bowl, which really solidified that they were going to keep him. As a result, he has earned an extension. But does this reflect the confidence and support from the university in his leadership, or that the team is actually moving in the direction they're supposed to? We'll have to wait and see in 2024. At 21, I have the Kansas Jayhawks. So the Jayhawks face uncertainty heading into the upcoming season due to quarterback Jalen Daniels' recovery back from a back injury, which truly limited his potential in 2023. Now, Daniels is known for his explosiveness, and he's still a very crucial asset to the team when healthy. Additionally, a running back, Devin Neal, coming off an impressive 23 season where he got 1,200 rushing yards and 16 touchdowns, keeps the depth on the offense and might be able to help Daniels, really, take out some of that stress. Now, despite the need to replace 3 starting offensive linemen, the Jayhawks have bolstered their line with acquisitions such as Shane Berman, winner of the Remington Award, and Darryl Simon, a seasoned guard from Iowa State. They also have former Baylor offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes, now he's the new play calling duty. He now has the play calling duties. So I think this could be a successful season. I think it comes down to, is Jalen Daniels going to be healthy? If he is, between him and Devin Neal, they're going to be dangerous. At number 20, I have the Kansas State Wildcats. Yes, 2 Kansas teams back to back, but they underwent a significant change on the offense, okay? With the departure of quarterback Tyler Howard to Ohio State and offensive coordinator Klein's move to Texas A&M, Coach Chris Clement has appointed Connor Riley and Matt Wells as coordinators to replace Kine. And that could be a problem or a success, we don't know. With Avery Johnson leading the team as a promising dual-threat quarterback, this could be the year the Wildcats take the next step. However, the Wildcats face the challenge of rebuilding their offensive line after the departure of key players such as Cooper Bebe, who was drafted by the Cowboys, and tight end Ben Sinton. Now, despite these challenges, the team has added receiver Dante Cephas to bolster their core, aiming to maintain the offensive strength. But still, that offensive line is truly where it's going to be, where they're going to kind of struggle or might have to wait and see how they do. At number 19, we have the Arizona Wildcats. So the Wildcats are under a lot of pressure with new leadership of Brent Brenham. All right, he's brand new, and we're not sure. The Wildcats and they're going under a significant change in their program. Notably, quarterback Noah Fada and wide receiver Tataroa McMillan have decided to stay with the team instead of entering the transfer portal, which does help their recruiting success for Brenham and adds some of that veteran success that they want. Fifita is very impressive in performance, including several games with over 300 passing yards, so this demonstrates his potential as a critical player for the Wildcats, as well as Noah Fifita keeps a solid offensive prowess with his talented movement and throwing power. So in the end, the offense for head coach Brent Brenham is still there. The defense, though, is still a huge question. At number 18, I have Notre Dame, however you want to say it. So last year was a successful season in terms for the Irish. All right, they, especially knowing that they've gone through some fundamental changes. No, they have a new offensive coordinator in Dan Brook and a new starting quarterback in Riley Leonard, who was previously at Duke. No, Leonard is set to receive support from wide receivers Chris Mitchell and Florida International, and Bo Collins from Clemson, who transferred in. However, though, head coach Marcus Freeman faces the challenge of finding capable tackles to protect Leonard, especially with the departures of Blake Fisher and future All-Pro Joe Alt to the NFL. At number 17, I have the Utah Utes. So I'm going to keep this one simple because the only thing Utah was missing was wondering what was going to happen with their quarterback. Was he going to leave or was he going to stay? Well, he decided to come back. Plus, they're joining the Big 12, who's going through a lot of different changes. Now, does this make them the championship contenders or playoff contenders? Maybe, but they've surprised us in the Pac-12. I have no problem believing that they could take the Big 12 with a more solid offensive and defensive scheme. At number 16, I have the Clemson Tigers. So, Clemson faced a pivotal season with questions about their ability to contend for the ACC title. All right, they haven't been the way they were before. No, much hinges on the development of quarterback Cade Klubnik in offensive coordinator Gary Riley's system, while adding former Ole Miss coach Matt Luke to coach the offensive line is promising. I still have concerns about the team's talent in depth, especially in light of the departure of key players like Will Shipley. Additionally, the Tigers need to cultivate playmakers at the receiver position, with hopes resting on the return of injured player Cole Turner and Antonio Williams to bolster up the offense. But if those come back healthy, they could be dangerous in the ACC. At number 50, I have the Oklahoma Sooners. So, Deion Burks, the standout Purdue transfer, emerged as a critical win for the Oklahoma Sooners during their spring practice, showcasing his talent as a wide receiver. Now, heading into their first season under quarterback Jackson Arnold, the team appears confident in their offensive capabilities, despite now being in the SEC. Also, despite the loss of the offensive line due to transfers, the Sooners have bolstered their front with new additions and are optimistic about their prospects. It's still to be a question, though, because, again, they're in the SEC now. Couple that with the return of critical defensive contributors, Oklahoma, I anticipate being competitive in the SEC landscape, but I'm not 100% sure, hence why I have them so low. I saw a lot of people have them higher than this. I wouldn't put them lower, but their acquisitions have been quite critical. Quite accurate to what their needs are from their departures. So we'll have to wait and see. Another Oklahoma school gets number 14 with the Oklahoma State Cowboys. So now that Oklahoma and Texas are leaving to the SEC, the Cowboys see this as the opportunity to become the prominent program in what is now a restructured Big 12 conference. Now, the return of key players like leading rusher Ollie Gordon II, along with the seasoned offensive line, top receiver Brendan Presley, and quarterback Alan Bowman. This provides the most perfect condition for truly taking advantage of the Big 12. Additionally, acquiring experienced cornerback Kobe Hilton and pass rusher Obi Izagabo further bolsters their roster. Now, there are some challenging road games against the conference rivals such as Baylor, BYU, Colorado, Kansas State, and TCU in the upcoming season. But do not be surprised if Oklahoma State appears to be the head of the Big 12 coming into 2024. At number 13, I have the Florida State Seminoles. Now, the outlook for the Seminoles in the upcoming season remains to be determined, following the departure of key players that led the team to an ACC title and an undefeated regular season last year. However, Coach Mike Norvell has replenished his roster through the transfer portal, bringing in 50 new players, including notable additions from Alabama. DJ Igaluli, with significant experience from Clemson and Oregon State, will lead the offensive at quarterback. Defensively, they reinforce with linebacker Marvin Jones Jr. from Georgia and newcomers Tomiwa Durijoy and Grant Kelly on their defensive line. Additionally, acquiring versatile players like Jalen Lucas, a transfer from Indiana, adds depth and explosiveness to the team's special teams. So they're kind of in the way where they need to be, but I'm also sitting here saying, can they mesh? That's really where we're at. At number 12, I have the LSU Tigers. So, after a successful 10-win season, LSU aimed to address its defensive struggles by hiring Missouri defensive coordinator Blake Baker under Brian Kelly's leadership. Despite losing their quarterback Jaden Daniels, who had an impressive performance last year, LSU's defensive shortcomings really don't hurt them as much. All right? Now, even though they were significant, which I think if the defensive struggles weren't happening, it could have really made them contenders and the SEC West title and maybe a trip to Atlanta. Now, Garrett Newsmer taking over the starting quarterback in 2024 and showcasing his talent in the spring game, it does make LSU fans optimistic about the potential for what the offense could be. Naismith will rely on a promising group of lesser-known wide receivers following the departure of Malik Neighbors and Brian Thompson Jr. to the NFL. But still, do not be surprised how different and how even maybe more potent this new LSU offense can be. And potentially a pretty solid defense. At number 11, I have the NC State Wolfpack. So, they added former Coastal Carolina quarterback Grayson McCall, which does add a poise to the offense and adds explosiveness as well. McCall does bring in impressive credentials, having passed for over 10,000 yards and 106 total touchdowns during his time with Coastal Carolina. Now, NC State strengthened its offensive arsenal by acquiring running back Jordan Waters, which was Duke's leading rusher in 2023. And of course, they bolstered up their receiving corps by adding 8 new receivers, including Noah Rogers from Ohio State, Wesley Grimes from Wake Forest. Additionally, tight end Justin Joly brings productiveness from his time at UConn. On the defensive side of the ball, safety Donovan Kaufman from Auburn and cornerback Tamarcus Cooley from Maryland and Devin Marshall from Villanova really are going to help shore up that secondary and address any gaps that they may have in the defense. Really, I don't understand why NC State cannot be higher, but simply I had to choose between them and some other teams, and I feel like the other teams are there already over them. But it's still very impressive, NC State. Very impressive. Now for my top 10, starting off with the Alabama Crimson Tide. So, with Nick Saban's retirement announcement, Alabama witnessed a significant exodus in players. However, the return of Jalen Milroe, who previously led the Tide to an SEC title, offers hope and stability. Coach Kellen DeBoer has bolstered the roster by recruiting former Washington player Austin Mack, Parker Bresford, and Jermaine Bernard, along with acquisitions such as Texas A&M defensive tackle L.T. Overton and USC's DB Domain Jackson. Despite these additions, though, the upcoming season it's expected to be Alabama's most challenging in over a decade, and it could set the standard for what we see moving forward from Alabama. At number 9, I have the Tennessee Volunteers. So, Nico Imalive takes the reins as the starting quarterback for the Vols, ushering in a new offensive era. He made notable debuts in the Citrus Bowl victory over Iowa, accounting for 4 touchdowns. He also earned praise from former quarterback Hendon Hooker, who dubbed him the chosen one in Knoxville, as in a significant endorsement given Hooper's impact on the program. Like Michael Penix Jr.'s role in Washington, I believe talent can elevate his team's performance, although the defense return, although it's still questionable. The defense also returns many key players. The recent departure of leading tackler Elisha Herring to the transfer portal does kind of hurt him a little bit, but in reality, with the potential of the new offensive era coming and pretty much most of the defense coming back, the Tennessee Volunteers are going to be dangerous in the SEC. At number 8, I have the Michigan Wolverines. So, new head coach Sharon Moore faces many challenges as a new head coach, especially following everything that Jim Harbaugh did with beating Ohio State at Ohio State, beating Penn State in Penn State, and going for the Natty. All right, the Wolverines are tasked with replacing key players such as J.J. McCarthy, tailback Blake Corum, and much of their offensive line. Now, Harbaugh's departure also led to losing several coaching staff members, which happens whether Jim Harbaugh was there or not. They might have still lost them. But they did lose defensive coordinator Jesse Mistrins and strength and conditioning coach Ben Herbert. Now, Moore made strategic hires, including former New York Giants defensive coordinator Wink Martindale, to replace Mitchell. Now, this potentially could help the transition with the familiar defensive system, but it's different from NFL back down. Now, despite these efforts, Michigan faces a daunting schedule featuring matchups against Texas, USC, and Oregon at home, along with road games against Washington and Ohio State. Really, again, this first season for Sharon Moore is going to set the tone for the rest of his time in Michigan. At number 7, I have the Penn State Natty Lions. So, despite an underwhelming performance from the first team offense in the spring game, which it was quite interesting, Penn State does remain as a unanimous top 10 team for the season. Okay? Coach James Franklin has made significant changes to the following a 10-win season, aiming to propel them into an expanded playoff. Okay, the Natty Lions are expected to unveil a new play caller and emphasize explosive plays, which they've lacked in the last few years. Now, Franklin believes these plays are essential for competing against these different teams in the Big Ten. But while the spring game may have yet to showcase these improvements 100%, Franklin has stated that the teams are focused on demonstrating their progress when the season kicks off in September. I'm just not 100% sold on that. But hey, that's just me. At number 6, I have the Missouri Tigers. So Missouri emerged as one of the most surprising opponents in the SEC in 2023. They were so formidable, so impressive, you would be surprised. All right? Following the victory over Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, the Tigers are determined to secure their first trip to the playoffs. Okay, led by former Georgia State running back Marcus Carroll, who assumed 1,300 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns last year. Missouri aims to build on its success from that. Now, head coach Eli Drinkwitz bolstered the team's defense with additions like former Florida defensive lineman Chris McClain, former Georgia linebacker Darius Smith, and Clemson defensive back Toriano Pride, all under the guidance of former South Alabama defensive coordinator Corey Batoon. Now, with a strengthened roster and ambitious goals, Missouri seeks to continue its upward trajectory in the SEC. But can they replicate last year's success? It seems like they have the team for it. But will it happen? We'll have to wait and see. At number 5, I have the Ole Miss Rebels. So, at least on paper, Ole Miss has arguably one of the most talented rosters that I've seen that team have in years. With acquisitions from the transfer portal and successful recruiting, you can't argue with it. If you look at paper, they're the best. Now, despite losing key players like Quinton Judkins to Ohio State, the Rebels are optimistic about their backfields and have bolstered the defense with high-caliber starters. Exactly what I'm talking about. On paper, these are perfect. Now, Lane Kiffin's leadership truly will show in this new team. The team's impressive 11-win season is kind of the foundation to that, but we'll have to wait and see how these new transfers and new recruiting really bolster up. Of course, if quarterback Jackson Dart maintains his performance level, Ole Miss could emerge as one of the strongest contenders in the SEC for the SEC title. Potentially could maybe secure a spot in the playoffs and even, do I dare to say it, compete for a national title. At number 4, I have the Oregon Ducks. So, the Ducks needed a win after losing Bo Nix, amongst others, to the NFL draft. But Coach Dan Lanning committing to stay in Oregon really is what they needed. This ensures the continuity as they transition into their inaugural season in the Big Ten. Exactly what I'm saying. Now, Lanning's impressive track record, including a 21-5 record in his first 2 seasons, solidifies everything that you need to know about this man. Oregon also made waves in recruiting, securing ESPN's number 4 ranked class and acquiring key transfers like former Oklahoma starter Dylan Grable. Notable additions also out of the transfer portal include safety Kobe Savage from Kansas State and cornerback Jabbar Muhammad from Washington. Now, this addresses the gaps left by the departing starters. Now, with pivotal matches against Michigan, Ohio State, and Washington on the horizon, Oregon's trajectory under Lanning's guidance looks quite promising, but we'll have to wait and see how they do in their inaugural season in the Big Ten. At number 3, I have the tasty Texas Longhorns. So the Longhorns really made a statement last year, by reaching their first CFP for the first time since a while. And although they fell short to Washington in a very close semifinal game at the Sugar Bowl, head coach Steve Sarkisian is happy with what happened. But now he faces new challenges of sustaining the success amidst now being in the SEC. Now they do have quarterback King Ewers, who decided to return, and now he's on the spotlight, especially considering that everyone's anticipating the start of Archie Manning era. Now it could be delayed, but we'll have to wait and see. Ewers must establish chemistry with all the new targets following the departure of a lot of receivers and tight ends into the NFL. Although incoming transfers such as Isaiah Bond from Alabama and Matthew Golden from Houston does help bolster up their roster. Also, Texas' schedule includes notable matchups against Michigan and Georgia, offering opportunities to prove that they're still as hot as they were last year, and they're still the team to beat in Texas. But they've also become very lucky. They're one of the few teams who are avoiding facing Alabama, Auburn, LSU, or Ole Miss, three of which are in my top 10. We'll have to wait and see how that turns out. Texas A&M and I believe Oklahoma are the 3 teams in the SEC who don't play Alabama or LSU. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with it. At number 2, I have the Georgia Bulldogs. So, despite having a school record 29-game win streak halted by Alabama in the SEC championship game, the Bulldogs still have a lot, and I'm talking about a lot of firepower. Georgia remains one of the most formidable teams in the CFP landscape. Having won 2 national titles in the past 3 years really just adds to the fire. Now, they did get a strong recruiting class, and the return of quarterback Carson Beck does help, bolster up all these talks about how formidable they are. They do have some weaknesses in their 2024 lineup, so that's kind of bad, but in reality, it's going to take some time to identify those weaknesses. They do have them, but I still haven't seen them. I just know they have them. Now, with these assets, the Bulldogs are poised to contend for another national championship, despite one of the hardest schedules that I've seen so far. Again, they do play Texas. They do obviously Oklahoma. I believe they also play Alabama. So it's going to be interesting. And at number 1, I have the Ohio State Buckeyes. So after facing defeat at the hands of their rival for their 3rd consecutive time, Ohio State really said, you know what? It's time for some significant moves, whether it's recruiting or the transfer portal. And that's just exactly what they went out and did. Though they did a lot of moves through their transfer portal and their coaching staff. They secured coveted talents like quarterback Will Howard from Kansas State, tailback Quinton Jenkins from Ole Miss, and safety Caleb Downs from Alabama. They added former UCLA coach Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator, aiming to inject new dynamics into their offense. Now, retaining key players like Emeka Agbuka, tailback Trayvon Henderson, and defensive standouts JT Tiamalau and Jack Sawyer were really important. All right, all that other talent is great, but if you don't have a level ground to put them in there, it would have meant nothing. So with these moves, Coach Ryan Day's Buckeyes are expected, and I expect them to be one of the top contenders, if not the top contender, to win the national championship next year. But they still face a very daunting schedule with Michigan and Penn State still on the record, plus Oregon coming into the Big 12. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out, but at the end of the day, I'm excited to see where Ohio State ends up. But for now, Panda, take us to our next thing. Well, that is all the time we have today. So as we wrap up the episode of Sports Unlimited, I hope you enjoyed my college spring top 25. I know some of those teams were questionable, but I feel like they're pretty correct based on all my research, everything that I saw. I feel like I'm okay with them. No, I think there's going to be some surprises. I think a lot of the teams are going to go up and a lot of the teams are going to go down. But I can guarantee that the top 10 at the end of the year is going to be a lot different. And of course, I'll give another one closer to the season as we go and explain why. Because things happen over the summer and stuff like that. But thank you for joining us on this journey of speculation, analysis, and excitement. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback, as always, is invaluable as we continue to bring you the latest and greatest in sports. So as always, this is Hershey signing off from Sports Unlimited. Until next time, sports fan, stay passionate and see you next time. Bye-bye.